"150 years ago, it was written
that young ladies be admitted into the university
on equal terms in all respects with young men.
On equal terms
in all respects with young men.
Creating the opportunity to learn,
to explore,
and to compete.
Now when it comes to women's basketball, this is the oldest rivalry around.
Thank you to the women who dared to dream,
broke barriers,
and paved the way.
Now, it's our turn.
To take the torch
and light the spark.
And light the spark
for future generations of leaders,
achievers, and champions.
I've seen that video a few times now, and I still get as fired up as I did the first time I see it. Well, welcome, everyone. My name is Brian Mann. I'm the Chief Development Officer for Cal Athletics, and I'm happy to be with you today. It's my great pleasure, and it is with mixed emotions that I welcome you to our fourth and final installment of the Cal Athletics Fund Coaches Caravan events. You'll remember that we were forced to reimagine these events following the restrictions on gatherings that came alongside the pandemic, and we chose instead to offer 4 different discussions to every member of the Cal community. The first was coaching through crisis. The second, the Pro Bear perspective. A few weeks ago, we discussed the Cameron Institute, our student athlete development program, and today we celebrate 150 years of women at Cal. And you continue to show up. Today, we have 225 folks who've registered from 5 countries, from 12 different states, a record for these Caravan events, and from decades of Cal graduates dating all the way back to the 1950s. It's been a ton of fun, and we have a great lineup for you again today, so thanks for joining us. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone that we'll be taking questions from the audience. If you scroll your cursor over the video, you'll see an option at the bottom for Q&A. Please submit your questions at any time. It'll get to a member of our team, and at the end, we'll save a few minutes to answer some questions from the audience. So we're going to start this, as we have each of the last 3, by inviting our Director of Athletics, Jim Knowlton, to join, to share some of his thoughts on the subject, and to say hello. Jim, you ready to go?
Ryan, I'm ready. How's everybody doing? It's great to see so many folks have joined us today, and these caravans have been fantastic. It's given us a chance to really showcase some of our coaches, some of our staff, some of the things that we're doing, and we've had such incredible turnouts that it's been really enlightening. I didn't even know how to spell Zoom when we started, and now these methods of communication, this method in particular, has really helped us stay connected through a challenging time. I hope you and your families are safe and healthy, and finding a way to continue to drive on and be productive during really what is a once every 100-year pandemic that we're dealing with. And today I couldn't be more excited because we really have put together a really superstar cast of panelists. And I'm not going to spend time introducing, because they're going to be introduced after I finish. But I really want to thank Lou and Shelley and Alicia and Cameron, and also our head of panel, Kate, who's really been a great help to us and a great teammate. And so big thanks to all of them for giving of their time and expertise and and really their history with Cal and Cal athletics. This has been a great year for us to celebrate the 150th year of women at Cal. And, you know, we got to kick it off at our women's basketball game against Stanford. And, you know, one of the real highlights, and it was a great game and it was fun. And we had the chancellor as the honorary coach of the team. And you never know how those kind of things are going to go. And Chancellor Christ is such a great sport, and she does so much with our students everywhere they are. And this was just another example of her being out there with the team and seeing and experiencing a game from the bench. And the next cabinet meeting, she shows up at the cabinet meeting and begins to talk about her experience and how much fun she had, how great it was to connect with the student athletes. And by the end of the cabinet meeting, I had 5 other senior leaders who have said, why can't I be an honorary coach? And so for Charmin, I think she had an honorary coach, senior woman leader at Cal for every single game for the rest of the season after that. And she had a blast, and all of our honorary coaches did. But it just showed the engagement and what a great place Cal is that we can provide those opportunities. I'm going to be just brief, but I think for us as we look at this celebration, you know, it's hard not to think about all of the women who have come before us here at Cal. And, you know, I'm not going to give you a history lesson, but just know that so many people have had an impact, and including Lou, that you're going to get to hear from today, who started the first women's athletic program. And I would normally do a quiz if we were in person, and I'd offer up a hat for anyone who could get this question right. But we've had 85 students and former students, Cal alums, earn Olympic medals, which is incredible. 85 Olympic medals won by Cal athletes and Cal alums, which is just an incredible number. And it tells you the quality of the young women who have come through, both academically, but in this case, athletically. So 150 years is a great number. It's fun to market. And as you may have heard in the video, the regent unanimously approved the resolution by Regent Samuel Butterworth that said, young ladies will be admitted into the university on equal terms in all respects with young men 150 years ago. And that was a great decision then, and it is a great decision to celebrate now. So with that, thanks for joining us, and go Bears.
Great. Jim, well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We certainly are grateful for your time and for joining us for each of these 4 events. So now it's time to turn to the reason we're all here, is to celebrate 150 years of Women at Cal. We've got a great lineup for you. We're incredibly excited about it. And we want to give them as much time as possible to talk to each other and hopefully to answer a few questions at the end. But before we get to our panel, it's my great pleasure to introduce our spotlight guest. Considered one of the pioneers in the advancement of female student athletes, Dr. Lou Lilly came to Cal in 1976 and immediately began the overwhelming task of improving women's athletics at Cal. She served as the women's athletics director from 1976 to 1992, and during her 17-year tenure, the Bear women won 28 conference championships and 2 national titles in crew. Those accomplishments just scratched the surface of the impact that she had on Cal athletics, and on women's athletics across the country. She's been inducted into 3 Hall of Fames, including the Cal Athletics Hall of Fame, and has received the Lifetime Achievement Award by the National Association of Collegiate Women's Athletics Administrators. If you've been to a game or an event at any point, you've probably seen her. She remains as loyal and dedicated a Golden Bear as there is. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Lou Lilly. Lou, it's great to have you.
Thank you. It's my privilege to be here. Always like to talk about the women's program and our success. So it's a great opportunity for me.
Great. And spending time today with Dr. Lilly as our moderator, and we're really lucky to have her here with us. Kate Scott is a graduate in the class of 2005. And while she was at Cal, she gained notoriety as Cal's first female mic woman, a position she held from 2002 to 2005. Since graduating, she's been a trailblazer in the sport broadcasting industry, becoming the first woman to call an NFL game on the radio, the first woman to call football on Pac-12 networks, and in March, she did play-by-play for the first all-female NHL broadcast in the United States. Currently, she's a play-by-play announcer, anchor, reporter, and host for the Pac-12 networks, where she covers all sports and calls football, volleyball, men's and women's basketball, men's and women's soccer, and softball. There's a reason we asked her to join us today. She's prepared to talk about any and all things related to the topic. She's highly regarded and well-loved by anyone affiliated with sports in the Bay Area. We're so proud to call her our own, and she'll be guiding us through the rest of our time together today. And for anyone looking for more on their social media, she's an incredible follow on Twitter. I can speak to that myself. So please help me welcome Kate Scott.
Oh, and she needs a haircut, and that's enough out of you, Brian. Thanks so much. It's so great to be here, especially when we have somebody like Dr. Lou. Lou, it is so great to see you tonight. I met you a couple years ago. I think it was, as it tends to go, at a Cal women's basketball game, I think in the bathroom. I was getting my makeup ready before a game, and I got to hear a little bit of your story, but I'm so excited to hear more because the women who are going to be on the panel in just a bit, and me personally, as someone who covers women's collegiate athletics for the majority of my job, our careers do not exist without everything you have done. So thank you so much. Just echoing what Brian said, for being here tonight.
It was my pleasure. It was a lot of fun back then because we make a lot of changes. So.
So you're leading me right into my first question. It's like you read my mind. Before we get to the panel, I want to know how it all started. Your first experiences at Cal. What was the state of the women's athletic department, as it was then known, at Cal when you arrived here in Berkeley?
Well, the women's department as such was established in '76. And so I was the first one that they had ever hired. And prior to that, it was a part of the physical education department. So when I came, there really wasn't a department as such. And when I came in and saw some of the things that I didn't see on my interview, I was a little shocked as I walked into what was the coaches' offices, supposedly. It was one great big room. Now we had 12 sports at that time. There was one great big room, and there were 3 desks, and there were 3 telephones. And at the end of the big area that was in Hurst Gym, there was a cage that had the equipment. Mm-hmm. Not very much of it, but there was a little bit of equipment and the warm-ups that the various teams used. So it was kind of a shock when I saw that for the first time.
I'm sure.
There were no locker rooms for the athletes. They were just in with the general people taking physical education classes. The coaches had no place to dress, and because they weren't taking classes, the physical education department did not assign them lockers. Mm-hmm. And so the coaches changed their clothes in the general restrooms, or else they wore their clothes to get there. Mm-hmm. There were no, the trainer was only part-time, and she was really a registered nurse as opposed to being a regular trainer.
Wow.
So it was kind of a real shock to see all that. They had shown me my office, which was nice, and a couple of other things, but beyond that, that was what I walked into. So I had a lot of things to do right from the very beginning in trying to get everything organized. So.
Yeah, well, and as Brian mentioned, I mean, he touched on just a little bit of it, but you went from this giant room with 3 desks and 3 telephones and
right.
people changing in hallways and public restrooms to, as Brian mentioned, a number of championships. So what successes were you able to achieve with coaches and the student athletes during your time?
Well, I had a lot of things that happened right at the beginning. And 1977 and 78 was a big year for this. That was the year after I came. And one of the interesting things as far as what we were able to do, there were so many things that we couldn't do. In other words, we couldn't use the term barebackers because that belonged to the men. So we became the Bear Boosters. And so we tried to raise our money through that group. We also decided that we needed a Hall of Fame. So we went and established it. And again, those that know Cal history with the great tennis players that we had, including and Ann Curtis, who was the first woman in the world to ever break 1 minute in the 100 yards. Now you can't even qualify with 100, but at that time it was like Bannister's 4-minute mile. It was really a great, great thing for us to be able to accomplish. And that was the mainstay of getting things rolling. One of the things was that people, I had the advantage of having people not pay attention to us because I had 7 new coaches my second year there. Some I released, and some I knew because I had been coaching against them. And there were some technical things with the university and so forth. So when I started, we had 12 sports, and I had 7 new coaches by the beginning of my second year.
Wow.
So papers didn't say a thing. Nobody seemed to care. Nobody even seen it happen except for the athletes. They were concerned with the coaches that I released, but that was how it all got going. So like I said, the press didn't pay any attention to us at all. So
And sometimes, as you mentioned, that can be a good thing.
that was a good thing for us.
It lets you just go about your work.
Right.
What accomplishment, when you look back, what accomplishment fills you with the most pride? Because I know there was a lot of them. Is there one that brings you the most joy and you're most proud of?
Well, I think the thing I'm most proud of is the variety of sports that we were able to do. As far as achieving something, we tried to see the whole department improve, not just 1 or 2 top sports. And personally, I was always trying to attach the academic side. So we started 13 endowments during that time that I was there. Again, they're not fully endowed, but at least we got them started. And we still connected a lot of those, not every single one, but a lot of those were connected with academic requirements for the kids that were coming out of high school. So once again, my primary goal was to show that athletics and academics could go together. So, and then in 1984, the USA Today, the newspaper, stated that we were the 4th best overall women's program in the United States. And we did that with the lowest budget and the worst facilities of anybody in the top 20. When you played softball at Cal, the right field was 35 feet short because we played it on Hearst Gym, so you could only get a double that. And so we had to negotiate to try to get us up to Strawberry. So, but those were then. And then I'm very, very proud of the individual achievements. And I think there are lots of names that people aren't aware of that I would hope you would be aware of after this. Our first, with the scholarships that we got, the first ones were, remember the Title IX came in 72. And this is 1977 when we recruited our first athletes. And we got Colleen Galloway, who holds all those basketball records.
Yeah.
And we also got Cheryl Johnson, which was a 3-sport athlete. She held records in softball, field hockey, and basketball. She's a 30-plus shooter in basketball and so forth. So our first 2 were very, very great. And I say the first 2 because when they signed, they didn't say the time. So we don't know which one signed first. They just paid on it. So that's a big, but we said they're equally as successful. We've had all kinds of All-Americans, and we had the National Institute. We had the Freshman of the Year this is a big surprise to people, with Brandy Chastain as a freshman.
Yep.
She was the National Player of the Year. And then Holly McPeak, anybody in volleyball knows Holly, she was the National Freshman of the Year. We've had a lot of 4-time All-Americans. And I think one of our greatest athletes, of course, was Mary T. Maher. And the Honda Awards go to the best in the individual sport, but is the overall one, which is the Honda Cup. And Mary T. is the only athlete in the women's program who has ever got it, and she got it in 1986. So we're very, very proud of her. But the academic side, I'm very proud of that. We had an academic award for the team with the highest GPA, and anybody that was eligible, we had that. And that was a big deal at our awards banquet.
Well, and you have made it very obvious why we use the term student athlete these days because it is about so much more than just excelling at your sports. It is about being an incredible academic student as well at one of the toughest universities in the world. And obviously, as we all know, the #1 public university. Okay, last one for you, Dr. Liu, and then we're gonna get onto the panel and let you enjoy everything that you helped to create. Why have you stayed engaged with Cal Athletics in so many ways? Because a lot of people finish up their tenure someplace and then they say, okay, it was great, I'll see you later. But you've stayed engaged. Why?
I think this goes back to the same goals. I felt that I could still be of value in trying to raise money for women's scholarships. It's kind of a fine line, but I think of it more as helping young women with their education, as supporting the university. Of course, it is there, but that's basically it. And then I happen to like sports, so I try to see as
Crazy.
many of them as I can. Right, and I really believe that all athletes feel their sport is the most important. And I tried to be an administrator that took that into account and made all the sports as good as we could. I did drop 2 sports my first year too. I forgot 1977, the big year, but I dropped 2 sports and then brought another sport back in the long run. Different sport, not soccer back, but that's all combined with NC2A and AIW and all that stuff. I would say varsity sport out of soccer.
Well, you did the things that needed to be done right when the creation of women's sports at Cal was happening. So like I said earlier, my career would not be possible. The careers, both as student athletes and as coaches of the 3 panelists that I'm about to introduce us all to, would not be possible. So on behalf of all of us and everybody who's tuning in tonight, Dr. Liu, thank you so much for everything you did for laying the foundation of women's athletics at Cal.
It was my pleasure. Truly enjoyed.
And she also did a great job, everybody, for setting us up to introduce us to our first guest, who had a great conversation off the air with Dr. Liu the other day. Because, well, we'll get to it in just a minute. I don't want to spoil anything that Shelley's going to say, but allow me to introduce us to our first guest on the panel tonight, Shelley Onstead. And Dr. Liu talked about it as one of her proudest accomplishments. So I have to start off by mentioning that Shelley was recently named the Donna Fong Director of Field Hockey, the first ever women's head coaching endowment at Cal. Yep, you remember just a couple minutes ago, Dr. Liu said they were working on partial endowments. Well, Shelley was the recipient of the first one at Cal just recently. And it was made possible by our generous supporters, Emily and Jeff Risberg, and Tom Schaefer and his mother, Abby. So thank you all for making that possible. And I'm sure most of you know this, Cal Field Hockey does not exist without Shelley. She was the first All-American for the Golden Bears during her playing days. She is a 6-time NORPAC Coach of the Year. Now in her 21st year coaching our Golden Bears, she's racked up 226 victories, 5 NCAA tournament appearances, 11 conference titles, a NORPAC tournament title, and oh yeah, in her off time when she's not at Cal, she was an assistant for the U.S. Olympic team at the Beijing Olympics in 2008. She's a member of the Cal Hall of Fame, needless to say, not just at Cal, but West Coast in general, because we all know field hockey started as an East Coast sport. The sport is not where it is today in Berkeley, in the Bay Area, on the coast, without Shelley Onstead. So Shelley, it is lovely to have you on our panel tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.
Okay, thank you. That's quite an introduction.
Well, it's all going to go downhill from here, Shelley.
Yeah.
So I had to start off on top. Our next guest, similar to Shelley, just makes me tired. Okay, are we ready for this? Alicia Montano is an athlete, an author, a podcast host, an activist, and now a mother of 3. Oh my goodness, I'm tired just saying that. She's a 2008 alum who took the college track and field world by storm her junior season at Cal. She claimed both the indoor and outdoor title in her event, the 800 meters. But Alicia was just getting started. I'm sure all of you know these ridiculous numbers by now. 7 U.S. national titles in the 800 meters. So she competed at the 2012 London Olympics. Then while she was 8 months pregnant at the 2014 U.S. Outdoor Championships, she competed. After which, hey Alicia, she bravely spoke out about her sponsors, well, lacking maternity policies to say the very least. And Alicia's fearless activism is a major reason that Nike and Under Armour and Asics and New Balance and a number of other companies that I don't have time to list have updated their maternity policy, thanks to Alicia. Last year, she launched a podcast with 2 other female Olympians. It's called Keeping Track, and it is awesome. It covers inspiring and important stories in women's sports. In May, just a couple of months ago, she released a book, Feel Good Fitness. It is perfect for now. I don't know if you timed it that way, girl, but it is incredible. It's a variety of creative and fun workout routines from 2 weeks to 6 weeks. You can do them with your kids, and there's a really good way that you can stay active, especially with what we're going through right now. So see, I wasn't lying when I said she makes me tired, because she's doing all of this and she has 3 kids. I think she was just nursing a couple of minutes ago. So, Alicia, it is great to see you tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, Lennox was trying to hang out with us, but I had to boot him.
Okay, well, he is welcome back at any time. Just add a little spice and COVID flavor to things. It is great to see you. And
thank you so much.
Our youngest panelist tonight and fellow track and field student athlete, Cameron Rogers. Cameron is the reigning NC2A champion in the hammer throw, the first team All-American, is the owner of the 6th best throw ever at the NC2A championships and the 7th best throw in NC2A history. Her title last year was the first national title in the hammer in Cal track and field history. As a Canadian, she also threw the best mark in Canada in 2019. She set the U23 Canadian record in the event, and she's currently preparing for those 2021 Summer Olympics as she continues to train for also her final season at Cal, and she's studying up to earn her UC Berkeley degree next May. So let's welcome from Canada. We learned just a couple of minutes before the panel started that she went up just to visit home in March, right when all this went down, and Cameron has been there since then. So Cameron, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. What an intro. It's awesome to be here with everyone. I'm so excited to be among these incredible panelists.
Well, we are so excited to have all of you. And Cameron, I'm going to start with you since I'm just going to assume, and that's always a dangerous thing to do, but I'm going to assume since you're the youngest, you may actually have the shortest answer to this question. So it's always good to start like that. What can you tell us? Let's just start by talking about Cal experience. As a student athlete at Cal, as I mentioned, you still have 1 season hopefully to go. So what's your experience been like as a student athlete at Cal?
Being a student athlete at Cal has taught me so many skills that go way beyond the classroom and the track. Time management, focus, determination. Living at home and away from campus these past 4 months, though, has given me the chance to reflect on my time at Berkeley. And I realized there's something very valuable we have that directly affects my day-to-day life, and that is our community of resilient, intelligent women all around campus. It's our lecturers, our GSIs, our coaching staff. Being surrounded by these incredible women is a reality that I'm so thankful to be living in, and one that must not be taken for granted.
It's wonderful. I loved everything about that. Shelley, what can you tell us about your experience as a student athlete, which you were, it might have been a few years ago, but as a student athlete at Cal?
Yeah, you snuck a picture in there in the intro, and it was a great introduction, but I got to defer to Cheryl Johnson and Donna Fong, those people whose shoulders I'm standing on. And that picture, I was actually kind of trying to look like Cheryl Johnson at the time because she always wore a headband and she was the best around. But as Dr. Lilly introduced, I mean, it was the beginning of the program. I came in about 2 or 3 years after it was rolling, and it was a bit different. It was, we were telling stories yesterday about how teams had to share jerseys on the same day. The volleyball team would finish playing and the poor equipment lady would wash the jerseys, and then the basketball team would roll out on the court with those exact jerseys. And I mean, we, Dr. Lee and the department just ham and egged it, and that was normal, and it was awesome, and it was fun. And, it's come a long way.
And I think you told me the other day that you still have your Class B license because in addition to being
okay, so we drove vans, okay? We were big teams, and there's a number of van stories, breakdowns on the side of the road, changing tires. There weren't cell phones then, people, it was chaos, and you had to have a Class B in order to drive the van, drive the team around, and we were traveled in 3 vans to one match or more because we had a JV team. Yeah, and I still have that Class B, and it's a commercial license, and I can drive a truck, a toot. Yeah, so I have a backup plan always. Thank you, Billy.
It's always good to have one of those, and that's a very intriguing one. So I'm impressed by that. I had to bring that up.
Yeah.
And Alicia, 2008 graduate. What can you tell us about your experience as a student athlete in Berkeley?
Oh my gosh. Well, following Shelley, I mean, there was nothing like that at all. And I'm, so grateful. Hopefully there were voices and lived experiences that made this better for us. But my experience that I had at Cal was one that's phenomenal. I still live here in Berkeley, so clearly I loved my experience. There's nothing that made me want to run away from it. But what I really loved, similar to Cameron, was being surrounded by so many incredible, brilliant individuals that helped, shape not only my career, but my life in a lot of ways. My activism that I'm a part of right now has been forged by being in the presence of people who have fought for some of the things that I've been able to have. I really just knew that the career and the time that I had at Cal was something that created this purpose within me that made me know that I had to pay it forward. And everything that I'd learned from Cal is something that you're seeing right now as, all of the things that I'm doing, the activism that I've done with creating the Ann Mother Foundation, the activism and speaking out about injustices, discrimination, policies that need change, and across the board, obviously, recognizing my importance and how important it is to use your voice and how we can affect change has definitely come from my time at Cal. So it's gone beyond the oval, gone beyond the track for me in a lot of ways. And so when I hear the term student athlete, I really want for our younger generation to really recognize not just taking the identity as athlete when they come to Cal or when they leave Cal. It's so much more important to become well-rounded and look around you and think of and appreciate all of the things that can afford you more opportunities once your time as an athlete is over at Cal.
I'm so glad that you touched on that because it is so important, as we're seeing, especially in times like this. Let's pull back from there. So we talked Cal experience, pretty focused. Alicia, let's talk life experience. What role have athletics played in your life? And sometimes that almost feels like a hard question for me to ask because all of us are so intertwined, right? Sports is life. So how would you look back, Alicia, at just the role that athletics have played in your life?
I talk a lot about this, actually. This has been it was the driver actually behind my book, Feel Good Fitness. It was really about everything that sports has given me, movement, that purpose of being, the activation with community and being a part of community and holding yourself accountable, but also having your teammates and your community hold you accountable has all been sport related for me. And when I thought about how I could bring that to the public, bring it to the broader community, I thought about all of the things that made me feel good in movement. And that's where the name Feel Good Fitness came from. When I think about sport, right, I really do say like it's really not the only identifier for me. And it's really important for me to know that. What I think about when I am moving, I do think about all of the metaphorical changes and all the metaphorical things that are happening as I train. When I think about pushing through to another set, I think about the barriers that I face within life and having to push through to get to that next step. When I think about, being exhausted, but still having to go anyways, this is life right now. We're talking about a really important social justice issue that we've been facing for a long time with Black Americans. It's global, by the way, but especially with Black Americans. And we're talking about fatigue and we're talking about that exhaustion. And I've been really pushing our community to look towards that when they do their physical activity. Look at that fatigue that you feel. And you know how you get better? You push through that. You do that next step. You have to keep going. And part of the process is becoming tired. That's the moment where you're getting stronger, where you're recognizing that mental strength that you need to have in order to push forward. So when I think about sport, I really do think about all of the life lessons that it's given me and how I use it right now and how I hope to continue to use it and share that knowledge with my little ones. He's
I know.
heavy footed.
I'm waiting for them to pop up on the screen. I might be a
Well,
little.
that's why we have the background, you know. But yeah, so that's how I think about sport. And again, I really just think it's important for me to know that I'm more than sport. And when I can tie all of that together and recognize how important that movement is to me and what else it gives to me in other aspects of my life, I think that I'm able to have a more well-rounded and great experience as I walk through life.
Yeah. Now, Cameron, your life is still kind of in the beginning stages. So when you think about that question, life experience, what role have athletics played in your life so far?
Wow. Well, I started track when I was 12 years old, and I'm 21 now. And in the years that I've been training and competing, I believe that there's no avenue of my life that hasn't been impacted by track. It shaped my journey through high school, knowing that I could have a future in my sport. It has given me the opportunity to study in the #1 public university in the world. And it's connected me with people from all over the world as well, people and connections. Hi, little one. People and connections that I've really been reaching out to and taking advantage of during the whole time with COVID. And I am who I am today because of my sport, and especially because of the woman who supported me through the highs and lows in it, my mom.
Yeah.
Being a single parent, she's always had to do twice the amount of work to make our goals a reality, but not once did she ever tell me that something was impossible. When I tell people about my mom, the word I like to use to describe her is powerful. She's a very powerful woman. And I stick to that because she has this unstoppable will to make things happen. Athletics has played a major role in her life as well. She's completed, I think, 11 marathons, 17 half marathons. I know, in 4 different countries. And being raised by a woman like her has taught me that success is not easy, but it's always very, very possible.
Wow, that was wonderful. Does your mom give you a hard time for not doing any of the running events? Does she give you a hard time for being a slacker? Right, Alicia?
Right?
It's funny, right? Like, my mom's a marathon runner and I'm a thrower, and kind of crazy how that happened, but so far the dynamic's still okay. So that's what's important.
Same sport, just different events within the sport.
Same amount of passion.
Exactly. Shelley, life experience. You've had a few more years than Cameron, just a few, like 3 or 4. What role has athletics played in your life?
Yeah, it struck me when we were talking about 150 years of women at Cal that I'm almost a third of that at Cal, 40 years at Cal. Scary.
And awesome.
I didn't expect to continue in athletics as a profession. I gained all of what you guys have both talked about in being a student athlete and all of that self-confidence and growth for being a student athlete and afterwards an international athlete. But I've always been aware that sports connect people, and I'm a people person. And it was really apparent to me because I was able to play over in Holland after I graduated from Cal, that it was an international sport. And you think about Olympic sports and how the Olympics began as a way to bring people together for competition. It's full circle. So I'm happy to be able to create a group on this campus that's international so that I can mix cultures and have them learn from each other and what that brings. But obviously athletics has given me everything, and I'm still at it.
Well, you and I discussed this off air, Shelley, since we're old compared to Alicia and Cameron. We just celebrated 48 years of Title IX last month. And recently, with the racial protests that have been going on, just with everything, it seems like right now, we're hearing the word equity a lot. More so than equality, we're hearing the word equity. So just wanted to hear you share anything that comes to mind about the word equity and the importance of Title IX now 48 years later.
I took it for granted at the time. I didn't understand it that well. I find myself giving my athletes certain media to watch, movies to watch, to really get the context of it. It was a civil rights law about equity, and it brought in sex as a criteria. We're not here without it, like you said, and I've had to express it or lean on it a number of times through my career, including when I was coaching the men's U16 national team, and I was working with the international boys, and we used Title IX so that they could play field hockey on their girls' teams at school. So people have to understand that it's a lot about equity, and it has obviously served women over the years, and it's been the more I just appreciate it more and more the older I get. It's just incredible, and glad we're still here.
Yeah, amen. I think all of us can say amen to that. Kind of going off of that, since obviously 48 years, a lot has changed. We heard from Dr. Lily how much has changed since she first arrived in Berkeley. So Cameron, how have you seen, as you mentioned, 12, 21, how have you seen the role of women in athletics evolve since you started?
Well, during the time that I've been competing, women have continued to be making strides in the athletic world. I mean, we can look at the incredible women on this call as examples of that. Dr. Lou, Shelley, Alicia, advocating for the rights of female athletes in their careers and as mothers. In my own time here at Cal, I've seen the creation also of the Golden Girls group by some of my peers, my female student athlete peers, that has created a safe space for the other female student athletes to use their voices and make connections, make friends, have their voices and their experiences heard. And that's a really important aspect of sport, is to have your voice heard, is to have your thoughts and opinions be out there, respected and taken in, so that we learn from that. We move forward with that. We create better experiences and environments and spaces where, like Shelley was saying, it's all about equity.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's Cameron, for folks who don't know what Golden Girls is, because I'm sure a lot of folks on the call don't, how was it created, and give us a little info on it?
So Golden Girls is a group of made up of female student athletes, and you go and you're able to have really fun experiences and do activities, whether it be kind of just sort of sitting and sharing your experiences at Cal, before Cal, what's really shaped you in your life, to going and having fun excursions and really bonding with everyone. It provides you with that feeling of community. So that's, yeah, and started by my very peers. One of my teammates, who's also on the track team, is, I believe, one of the organizers and one of the managers of the whole group as well. And she's told me that, you know, it's so rewarding knowing that you're reaching out to so many people who have such diverse experiences, but have all come together and are now at Cal, and all of those experiences that we can learn from. So that is what Golden Girls is.
Yeah, and it's really neat for those of you who are on the call who haven't seen it, because I think one of the things that we forget, we hear, you know, female student athletes at Cal, we think that everybody hangs out with everybody, but usually Alicia's like, no, that's not it, because their schedules are so set. Sometimes there's not overlap, so players never interact with one another. And this group has created bonds between teams where oftentimes it would just be, you two know, if you're a track and field athlete, you hang out with track and field. If you're a field hockey player, you just do that. But it was so cool for me as a broadcaster in the last few years to see soccer players at the Cal volleyball games, to see volleyball players at the Cal basketball games, to see other student athletes out supporting you. And like you said, I think you share so much, but at the same time, there's so many differences because your sports are so different, and your backgrounds, and, you know, certain parts of the country excel in a certain sport or part of the world versus others. So that's been really cool as just a Cal alum and fan for me to witness you all kind of taking each other in the last couple of years. So Cameron, thank you for sharing that with the group. Alicia, what have you seen as far as the evolution of women in sports is concerned?
Oh my gosh, a lot. Just in general, I think one of the biggest things I've seen, and I'm not even quite sure if it's just about sports, but I've just seen the ability for our women to use their voices to affect the change that they want and that they need. And so that's one of the greatest things. And that those collective voices, like Cameron talking about, watching the Golden from afar, still a little bit older, Golden Girls come together really does mean a lot in so many different aspects. Like Kate had came behind and mentioned, coming from field hockey to lacrosse to track to basketball, having all those sports that are so different across the US come together and actually have conversations that share each other's life stories ultimately allows for there to be more spaces of representation of people that you may not have had any interaction with in your life. And again, I keep coming back to our justice issues that we need to continue to talk about. They're in all the places, all the spaces. If we're talking about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, this is a really great time to talk about that. When we talk about lacrosse, that's been a sport that requires more money to get involved in. Things like field hockey, more money to be involved in. And if we're talking about years and years of systemic oppression, that's been something that you probably may not have been in a sport with a Black athlete, in many states. And you're moving across states that really have pushed Black individuals even out of being in any sports within their school and coming to, hopefully, Cal, to learn more about different people. I think that is one of the greatest things that I've recognized within the development of women's sports, but it's not just that. It's just about the fact that I think women have been able to have the opportunity to use their voice, recognize what they need, not be afraid to ask for it or go and get it. Make sure that it happens, because ultimately it makes our world a much better place overall, not just here at Cal, but in places all across the world. And I think that is the most powerful thing that I've recognized about being a bear in general, that these are the type of things that we create. And it isn't just about our own individual self. It isn't about our small group of individuals. It's about more of a broader trajectory of change that is so needed.
Shelley, going off of that, we heard the word empower from Alicia. And, we're at an amazing place right now from where Dr. Lou talked about us starting and some of the stories that you shared, sharing uniforms with basketball players. But we obviously want to keep growing and empowering, and we want more for our coaches and our female student athletes and for just women in sport in general. So how do we get that more? How do we continue striving, both as student athletes, as moms, as women? What do you see for us in the next few years moving forward?
I just think that sign of the times, right? A lot of my focus in the last few years has been on women coaches and women's rights and bias and things like that. The social justice that's just, blown up has opened my eyes incredibly. And I just think this type of crisis, COVID, hopefully will result in, a hard shift in a few ways, because I think we've all experienced all of this sort of upset as a whole. And it's one of the first times, probably ever, that we're universally across pretty much the world experiencing the same thing. So I think then you start reaching out and looking for help. And I kind of like how this is all layering together. I think for me as a coach, I'm just starting with my team, just right within my team in little baby steps, and hopefully going to come through this with a whole different perspective when we see each other again. A lot of Zoom though.
Yeah, a lot of Zoom, that's for sure. I think my first time ever using Zoom was back in March. So Dr. Lou and I were comparing notes there. I'm very impressed with her. Cameron, same question for you. Since you still have a year to go at Cal, when it comes to empowering our young women to continue striving for more in athletics and in life, what are you hoping to see?
There's been so much that's been done and accomplished for women, and there's always more that can be done. And in order for that to happen, we have to keep providing support in their athletic and academic endeavors. I can positively say from my own experience of being an athlete and a student that it truly takes a village. Having a support system of people who care and want to see you succeed makes the biggest difference. And talking about the system, I think it is important to mention that there are many men who have helped women pursue their passions and further advance in their respective fields. And this in itself is a symbol of unity. which has become ingrained into the fabric of Berkeley. Berkeley is all about community and that unity and that equity, and it's now time to come together and continue building our support system. And from what I have personally experienced here at Cal, empowered women empower other women. And it's a self-reinforcing trend. And we have to keep seeing that continue through the next year, through the next 10, 20, 100 years of Berkeley and everywhere.
Alicia, I see you nodding. I'll just let you take it.
All that. Yes, I think that, what I hope for our future generations and, our student athletes to see, or to just recognize in themselves, is that how much their voices do matter. And when they do empower other people, ultimately they do find their power too. And I, instead of looking around, seeing places where there needs change and just saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's not happening. I can't believe that's not happening. Recognizing how banding together is so important, and you going out there and talking about what the needs are, being bold, being courageous. I talk about that as my mantra. Being bold and being courageous, it's necessary. And those are the things that are going to make changes. And you are a part of the solution. You can help make those changes. And so don't be afraid to go out there, pull together all of your girlfriends that you need to, get allies behind you, talk about your story, tell it loud, boldly, and confidently, and let's make those changes happen.
All right, I'm ready to go out there right now. Y'all have me fired up. Okay, we have a couple of questions from the audience. If you three are ready, we're gonna dive in. This first question is for you, Coach, for Shelley, from Nicole. Says, Coach, what impact will Stanford, spelled with a U, by the way, just to clarify, will Stanford cutting field hockey at the end of the 2021 school year have on the sport here in the Bay Area and beyond?
Nicole, good spelling. So, that happened a week ago, and it was a dark day amongst a lot of dark days during COVID. So it's the question what the impact will have on Cal or beyond.
Here in the Bay and beyond. Yeah. So,
it's devastating to the sport. It's devastating to Olympic sports as a whole. To see that, me personally, I get very emotional to see that rivalry somehow go away. I've been part of it since I was itty bitty. My mother went to Stanford, my dad went to Cal. And we had a crazy household. Every big game, people were short-sheeting beds. My brothers sided with my dad. I sided with my mom. Now she was the Stanford grad. Look where I ended up.
You know it's right after all.
So, Dad shed the tears when I got inducted into the Hall of Fame. But anyway, first of all, the day-to-day at Cal won't change a whole lot. A lot of our scheduling and our season has to do with teams coming into Cal to play and for us to travel. It shines a bigger light on the problem with Olympic sports and what I call COVID convenient cutting. And unfortunately, the structure within Division I athletics has now, with COVID and the problems with the finances, has put tremendous pressure on Olympic sports. I feel for every one of those sports that Stanford eliminated. I feel for my friends, the staff there, the athletes, like the people I know. But I hope, and believe me, I'm going to help make sure this shines a light on the fact that Olympic sports are in a lot of trouble. And since COVID started, over 260 programs across all three divisions have been cut.
Wow.
So look at me, I'm gonna fight. We're gonna fight for Stanford. We're gonna fight for the bigger picture. It's just shining a really tragic light on it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Tough to bring that up, but thank you for sharing all of that, Shelley, because I know that it's been tough. I know that each sport is its own family, even the family members that we kind of hate, like Stanford. This is a great question. All right, this one's from Joe. Alicia, what advice would you give to Cameron as she finishes her collegiate career and gets ready for that next step in the Olympics and international competition?
Oh my.
I'm going to take notes.
Oh goodness. Oh my goodness. The pressure. Thank you, Joe. I think I'm like super mom mode right now, everyone. So I really do think about the beyond picture. Really thinking about forging your sports career in a way that is also very business minded. Recognize that the media isn't always going to be looking out for you. They're not going to be waiting to tell your story. You have to be able to tell your story. You have to look for those business opportunities that are going to allow you to live beyond sports, and be able to take sport with you for as many, hopefully many, many, many years to come. Be involved back into your community, come back to your alma mater, reach out to mentors. Kate Scott, thumbs up. I've had very amazing conversations with Kate Scott in, looking for my role and my time outside of sports. And I think that those are some of the greatest things that you can do. Just recognize everything that's around you right now. I know a lot of times we like to be very tunnel vision when it comes to sport, but it's really important for you to look at your network and, ultimately see them as branches and things that you need in order for you to have as much growth as you possibly can. You want to see yourself as that tall tree, is what I talk to my 5-year-old daughter about all the time. I'm like, you want to see yourself as that tall tree. There are roots, that are embedded with you. That's your mom, dad, your family. You're growing with this very, very strong trunk. That's everything that you surround yourself with. Those are the people that you talk to. And then you have your branches, which is your network, that you ultimately also need to utilize and see your full growth. And obviously watering that daily, all of the knowledge that you can get during this time, and making sure that no time is wasted. I know it's really hard to really recognize what that really means, but you'll find it. You'll know. Your intuition is key. Don't discount it. I really have to say that again. Don't discount your intuition. It really is key. And I'm here for you.
Wow.
Oh
That was amazing.
Right?
Thank you.
Can we all hug our computer screens right now?
Virtual hug.
Hugging the screen. Hugging the screen.
No, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I take everything you say to heart. I'm very thankful for all those pieces of advice, and I look forward to talking much more in depth about them with you the next time I get to come back and see you working out the track, and all those little moments that I hold very dear. So thank you so much.
For sure. Can't wait.
This is my favorite part of this. It is such a Cal family. I think that at other universities, that can be cliche. We hear it thrown around so much, right? Why did you choose this university? It feels like a family. But I think this is just case in point. Shelly and I have been in touch since I was a student who was just annoying the crap out of everyone, leading cheers. And, since then, Shelly has helped me over the years. So it's been great to get in touch with Alicia after her career finished at Cal, and now to get to know Cameron. Okay, we could obviously talk forever, but people have to make dinner and stuff. The last question, and I love this one, going off of that family aspect. It comes from Jane Jackson. And I'm going to start with you, Cameron, because you already talked about one woman who inspires you, and that's your mom. So let's just go full circle. We started by talking about your experience at Cal, so let's go back there. One woman who has really inspired and mentored you, and it can be in the circle, it can be in the classroom, it can be, in activism, and anybody that comes to mind when you think about a woman at Cal. It could be a teammate for all that matters, who has really inspired you and given you that little extra push when you've needed it.
Oh, wow. That is a hard question to answer.
Yeah.
Truly. Trying to think of one woman who has done all that, because I'm really trying not to avoid giving one answer. But
it's a hard one. I know you're still at Cal, so you don't want to tick anyone off by not saying their name.
But it is really hard, because being at a place like Cal, it's almost like every single day I feel like I'm meeting a new incredible woman that is impacting my life, that's changing my worldviews, that is changing the way that I see other people, that I look at the world. And so for me, it is really hard to answer that question. So I don't know if I can actually give one answer, and I'm so sorry about that. I really am. But that's just because I am lucky to be at an institution where it's never just one woman that comes to mind when I think of someone who has pushed me or someone that has been rooting for me, someone that has been able to support me. It's everyone. It's that community, that support system.
Yeah.
So in a way, I'm almost happy that I don't have to give one answer, because it shows how many incredible people there are at Berkeley. You know, that's one of the things that I love the most about our school, is that there are always women who are going forth and changing the world and shaking things up and being those trailblazers that allow us to use our voices and move to the future with confidence and with that resilience. So yeah, I'm sorry again, but
there is no apologizing necessary, because I love that answer, because it was honest and it was your truth. And I was flashing back then to all the women whose names I remember and names I don't remember, who had an impact on me. It could have been a student athlete I met one day eating at the Golden Bear Cafe, and I still remember that conversation. Shelley, let's go to you. When you think about, it's gonna be hard for you too, because as you mentioned, you've been around for a few years. So feel free to take your answer wherever you'd like to go when it comes to a woman inspiring you, or women.
First of all, Jane Jackson helps me every day and is family. So it doesn't surprise me that this comes from her. You know, I was thinking back about women at Cal, and Dr. Roberta Park was my advisor. She was a legend in the world of physical education and women's sports. Marion Diamond, if I don't know if that rings a bell for you, but she was amazing. Actually proved that love helps your brain. And it just has to be Donna Fong. I mean, if not for Donna, I wouldn't have been at Cal. Every day I go to work and I try to do right by Donna with the program. I want it to progress. I want it to prosper. And I want it to provide this opportunity for young women forever. So that would be her.
Yeah. Alicia.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm trying not to copy Cameron, but I mean, I think when you think about all of the women that are just like, have empowered me and have been so incredible at Cal, and you've watched really forge, you know, this, you know, my formative years, I really do think of like a super woman, you know, powerhouse of all of those women collectively. And I'm really, just to be completely transparent, bad with favorites. I really am. Someone will ask me my favorite color and I'll be like, all of them, they're great. We need them all. So yeah, I mean, I think, and then, you know, somebody who I can really think about who was there at Cal when I was there, who was really incredible, actually, was Sandy Barber. She was our AD at the time. And she was just, I love it because she was unapologetic. Cameron, unapologetic. She was no BS. And I really love that because I just feel like, I mean, we know that women have had to walk through this world with, you know, pinkies out and, you know, don't say this, don't do that. And Sandy, she didn't. She was amazing. It was so awesome to watch her walk through a space that has been largely male dominated. And, you know, Lou Lily could probably talk a lot about that as well. And, you know, she just owned the space. And for me, we came in at the same time. It was really amazing to have that be a part of my career at Cal, honestly, having Sandy Barber. And, you know, when we had really big issues on our team, she made really hard and swift decisions. And I commend her for that, really hard and swift decisions. And, you know, we can talk about that time in 2007, but it was necessary and it was about women's voices being heard, which, you know, we can hear many cases of women's voices not being heard or being undermined, or, you know, the victim being the villain. And, you know, she was just very swift in action and she was no BS. And I I love her approach to all of that, and I take that and I sometimes put on my Sandy Barber hat, and I'm just like, you know what, I'm going to be no BS in this situation. Sometimes we want to fluff it out, and you know, in order to get things happen, you have to cut through the fluff.
Mm-hmm.
Good one.
You just got to go. Yeah, that is a good one. I think Sandy might be here. Hi, Sandy. She's been a huge mentor of mine over the years too. Just telling me.
I know she's here.
Telling you when I was upset about not being at ESPN 2 months after I graduated from Cal, she told me, slow the F down, enjoy the journey. You're going to learn something at every stop that you're at. And she was so true, because I still haven't worked for that network, and I'd say that the career is going okay and the life is going okay. So. Well, ladies, this chat was absolutely wonderful. I was expecting a lot, and you all exceeded those expectations. No surprise, because you're California Golden Bears. So thank the three of you for your time and your honesty and your vulnerability and sharing these stories. Dr. Liu, I know you're still listening in. Thank you again for sharing your stories, for laying the foundation, for forcing Shelly to get that Class B license so that she has a plan B now, just in case. And I know that maybe Shelly can be picking me up from SFO. You said maybe you could be driving one of the long-term parking buses in a few years. I look forward to that. I'll buy an extra latte on my way out of SFO.
I'll be rocking old Cal gear.
And we'll just do a little Go Bears. I'll give you a little tip on the side. But thank you all, because I know you're all incredibly busy with family and with training and with everything that's going on right now. And we all talked about how where the program is now is great, but we want to continue to grow, and we want to continue to win more championships on the fields, in the circle, and obviously in life. And we need your help to do that. So I'm going to say goodbye to you now, but stay around for just a few minutes. Brian Mann is going to come back on, because Brian has a couple incredibly important things to say, especially right now when sports are up in the air, right? We don't really know what's going to happen in the next few months, because safety and health is our #1 priority. So Brian, come back on and take it away, so that we can take the women's athletics programs at Cal from here to just like way above the Campanile, just through the roof, across the bay, over the Golden Gate Bridge, and more Honda Cups, all the awards. So thank you all for watching and being here tonight. And Brian, come back up.
Thank you, Kate. I'm grateful. It's you guys can see why we invited her to do this and to lead us through. The connecting all corners of Cal. But boy, that was a lot of fun, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. It was great to hear about the history, to learn a little bit more about what's happening today, certainly to hear how their experiences as student athletes and members of the Cal community has prepared them for what comes next. I'd also be remiss if I didn't share that we gained viewers as this went on, which is the first time this has happened at anything. Typically, it's you're in with who you start with, and not you guys. Clearly, word got out that this was something special, and more people joined us. And look, we started with Dr. Lily, and she gave us an incredible picture into her days at Cal. But we should acknowledge that there was incredible history of athletics in the women's department at Cal. It's been around for 125 years. I'm told even that Linda Brothers is on the call. Linda, who graduated in 1968 and lettered in 4 sports and has some incredible stories. As part of that legacy, as are many, many women who came before them to lay the groundwork for Dr. Lily, and of course through the rest of the people on our panel here today. And Linda earlier this year made an incredible transformational commitment in the form of a bequest to women's athletics that's going to transform the scholarship support we're able to provide. You heard Dr. Lily talk about the things she's most proud of, and it's those 13 endowments that she created. Linda's building on that legacy, and there's a lot more to come. Shelly was introduced to you today and officially a few months ago as the Donna Fong head coach of field hockey, the result of 2 incredibly generous gifts from the Risbergs and the Schaefers. And of course, we're raising funds today for a softball facility, a beach volleyball facility, 2 facilities that are going to transform and set a new standard for facilities, women's athletics at Cal. We'd love for you to support that project and any other of our women's sports if you're able. And there's a myriad of ways to do it. Come to games, buy season tickets, bring a friend, tell the story, share this video with people. Let them know that there's some incredible things happening in our department, that there are some strong women here that are going to go on to do amazing things in the world, and that we're all proud and lucky to be a part of their journey. I can't thank our guests enough. Jim Knowlton, of course, at the beginning, but Dr. Lily for the spotlight guest, Shelly, Alicia, Cameron. Alicia, your conversation with Cameron might be my favorite part of the whole thing. It was amazing. And of course, Kate Scott for so definitely guiding us through that conversation and keeping me from having to stumble through this. Kate, we appreciate it. We're grateful. And thanks to everyone who joined us today. This was a great group of people. This is the final installment. This is the 4th of our Coaches Caravan series, so we're going to say goodbye to you for just a little while. But thanks so much for tuning in as we reimagine this series. We'll be sharing these videos soon. Please share them with others and come back the next time we bring a group like this together. So take great care of yourselves. Be well and go Bears.